when the market's confused. Steve strolls in with a chart and some probable news. Troy fires up Omega like, let's model this mess, while traders at home whisper, please help me stress test. It's the show where the candles dance. Volatility takes its chance. Steve says rules, Troy says math. Together they chart a hilarious path. Grab your lunch, don't be late. They'll tell you why the market's weird again. Oh, great. They're calling out levels, volatility rebels, equity drama, and index devils. One guy's calm, the other's pressing buttons fast. Is this bullish? Is this bearish? Ah, depends on the past. So tune in, laugh, and maybe learn to. These two make the chaos look almost doable for you. Every Tuesday at noon, hit that stream real quick, because markets are wild, and these two are slick.
Steve, I could listen to it all day. Just the sound of you.
Never gets old.
The 70s. Really, it's a whole playlist of just my own stuff that I make. So I'm excited for that. Steve, how you doing today? How the trades going? And this has been we've been up 30 and down 30 in 5 hours. So we've had a little bit of moves today.
Yeah, doing good. I took a couple of losing trades on my directionals this morning. One was in Coinbase, tried to get long, and it kind of flushed me out before actually making the move. Had some good relative strength. I like the trade, just one of those that didn't work out. And then the Qs, I tried to get short, thought we may make one more, kind of reacted off pre-market lows, thought we might make one more flush lower. Almost hit my profit target, and then we bounced. Then we got this news that China is restricting the NVIDIA chips. Sounds like a kind of a final announcement, but for some reason, NVIDIA stock shot up. Stocks are loving the news. So go figure.
Yeah, that's one of those days where I just go back to bed. Like when I've got some NVIDIA puts, and it's interesting. You can kind of, when you hold on to stuff for multiple days or months in some cases, it's interesting. You start seeing patterns, and NVIDIA is one of those I can't really wrap my head around. They good news is bad news sometimes. Bad news is good news. It's such a big player. So I'm glad I wasn't paying attention. It would have just made me mad.
Yeah, we had CPI this morning. Stocks shot up. The data came in as expected. S&P, NASDAQ pushed up above yesterday's high, and then just kind of settled in a little bit lower than that before the open. And then it was kind of all downhill for the first hour. And then we kind of bottomed at that point. Now we're back heading towards highs.
Heading towards the old highs. What, I mean, I can't believe we're still talking about this a year later, but when is the tariff announcement? The next tariff announcement?
The Supreme Court opinion day is tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay. So CPI and PPI and tariff announcement. I mean, we love making predictions, even though we try to just be neutral traders. What's your prediction about tariffs?
So, yeah, we have PPI tomorrow, pre-market as well. But let me bring up. So I just kind of keep my eye on Polymarket. Do you want to share my screen here? So right now, Polymarket is showing a 27% chance that the Supreme Court rules in favor of the tariff. So pretty low chance, right?
Oh, interesting.
We were supposed to have the opinion day, or potentially have it last Friday, and then they pushed it to tomorrow. And right before it was getting ready to potentially come out, you saw it jump from about 25% up to 30%. And then they came out and said, nope, they're going to do it Wednesday, which is tomorrow. And the probability started falling, and now we're creeping back up. So we're right back to 27% chance. The other one on Polymarket here is, it says, will the court force Trump to refund tariffs? And there's only a 28% chance that will happen. So only a 28% chance they rule in favor, and only a 28% chance that the refunds happen. So it'll be interesting.
Even looking at that, we got some arbitrage opportunities, because right below that, will the Supreme Court rule on Trump's tariffs? That to me is a very low number, considering that we're pretty sure it's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm just not sure about the process. Like, tomorrow is the opinion day, where the Supreme Court gives their opinion, but I don't know what the actual definition of ruling on it is. I assume that's different. So
that's a good question. That is actually a pretty good question. I don't know. Yeah, otherwise I'd be all in on that one. But
what's interesting to me is, you see all kinds of headlines, and the first thing I do is I always go to the option chain.
Yes.
So if I'm looking at the SPX option chain for tomorrow, I mean, it's only pricing in a 12% implied volatility.
Yeah.
We had a decent contraction after the CPI in the VIX, and then of course the market started coming down, so volatility got pumped a little bit. But I mean, it's not pricing in a whole lot, in my opinion, for the potential. It just seems like, if with the uncertainty around that, typically the market either pumps in a bigger expected move, or pumps in a little bit more pricing for uncertainty like that. But it's kind of acting like it's not going to be a big deal.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's, to me, I mean, I wonder if the market just kind of, there's been so much tariff talk, and it kind of got beat to death. And I mean, you're right. It does seem like an opportunity where, I mean, the thing that's interesting to me, Steve, is like, I don't even know what the market would do if they ruled against him. Like, is that bullish?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, my thought last week before the other one, because they were pricing in, and now NFP was on the same day, so that was part of it, but they were pricing in a pretty decent amount of juice into the options for last Friday when it was supposed to come out. And so my initial thought was, okay, it's uncertainty. Market doesn't like uncertainty. If they rule against, that's going to create more uncertainty, because then they're going to start talking about, oh, do we have to pay the money back, and all these different things. And so in my mind, I thought, okay, we're probably going to go lower because there's so much uncertainty. But now it's like the market has kind of changed its tune, and it's like, we don't care.
It's nothing like watching the chain. I mean, the chain will tell you so much.
But to answer your question, I don't know. I mean, I'm not taking a directional position on it by any means, but I almost want to buy some volatility, buy a straddle or buy a strangle, because the options are fairly cheap compared to what I would have thought they would be. But I don't know. I may crowdsource something from the community during Power Hour and put something on, see if we can scalp a little profit.
The last thing I'll say about that, it's interesting to me. We look at these levels, and obviously levels are levels, and it is what it is. But we're kind of just sitting here below 7,000, and that's a pretty big level. And call it gamma, call it whatever you want to call it. There's some psychological stuff on that, and so I've always found, and this is completely anecdotal, I would love to run some deeper analysis on this. I've always found that you get over those big humps on a gap. It doesn't just tomorrow open up at 60, 989, and then just go above 7,000. I found that it'll gap. Sometimes it'll fade, but eventually it goes from there. What do you do with that? I don't know, but we're approaching all-time highs. We're approaching a giant level, and we're approaching a big news event. So you kind of maybe play a cheap butterfly to the upside. I don't know if you want to play it. I don't know.
Yep.
I like your idea of crowdsourcing it. But Steve, I want to talk about things that are actually knowledgeable, either actionable, and those things are some of my favorite toys I had growing up. Steve, I was a Transformer kid. I'm gonna tell you the truth. Like,
are you a Bumblebee fan, or?
Optimus
Decepticon.
Prime.
Which team were you on, Troy?
Oh, I mean, listen, Optimus Prime was just America to me. He represents America, and and so I was always the good guy in this world. But you've done stuff for a while now called Transformer, Steve. And can you talk about a little bit about what that is and how you trade them and things like that?
Yeah. So at kind of a high level overview, the reason I call the strategy a transformer is because essentially you're taking one spread, could be a vertical spread, could be a butterfly spread, could be an iron condor, really any type of option spread. and you're essentially transforming it into a different spread. And really the whole basis of it is to take a current spread, remove the risk, and create the potential for either a minimum profit or a higher profit. Now, the one thing that I think there's some confusion on around this that I get questions on about a lot is I'll get people sending me a direct message or posting in the community and saying, "Hey, this iron condor is going against me, or this vertical spread's going against me. How do I transform it to get rid of that risk?" And I wish I knew the answer to that, but
Man, I was about to say it. That'd be helpful.
Unfortunately, that's not how they work. The reality is, when you transform a spread to remove the risk and give yourself the opportunity at a higher profit, you already have to have a little bit of profit built in. So let's say you sell an iron condor and you're at 15, 20, 30% of credit received, you're already in the profit. You can use that profit to transform it, to remove the risk, give yourself an opportunity at a higher potential profit without any risk going forward. So
what structures do you look at with that? I mean, obviously someone says, fix my iron condor, but have you found that there are certain structures that work better than others with this?
It's so flexible, and there are literally an infinite number of ways that you can use the whole methodology around transformers. We actually have I think it's 4, maybe 5. I think it's 4 different classes that are over an hour each, talking about different transformer concepts. My favorite one that I've just because it does take a decent amount of kind of mental capital to kind of monitor and wait for it to get in the right position, then transform it. So I've kind of gravitated my transformers primarily to my 1 DTE iron condors. So I don't have a live one on today because my 1 DTE iron condor didn't set up to enter today. But I can show you an example. Am I still?
Yeah,
please.
Still
sharing my screen?
I'm gonna get rid of my little face, put it in the bottom here, and let you cook.
So like I said, I don't have a live position on right now, but I can show an example of how it would work. So I'm on the 1 DTE options. So I'm going to act like I have a position on. So I'll just set up a theoretical iron condor. So let's just go to, I'm just going to pick some random strikes. I'll pick the 7,000 and I'll just do a 50 wide iron condor. And then I'll go to the $35s. I'll go to the 30s. I'll go 50 wide here. Okay, so it's just a 50 wide iron condor. If I take it over to the analyze screen in Thinkorswim, which you could also, I don't know if you want to, maybe you want to model this, Troy, on the.
Yeah, we might model it next week. I might look at it today and then kind of just play around with it and show some stuff next week in the modeling.
So here's the risk profile of an iron condor using the 1 DTE. So what I like to do with these, there's, like I said, there's a lot of different things you can do with this, but what I like to do with this is once I get a little bit of profit, so let's say I put this on near the open today and price just kind of chopped around and now I'm up 10, 15, 20, 30%. What you can do at that point is obviously you could just close the trade and book that profit, right? So that's always one of the things that you're weighing is if I transform this, how does that compare to just taking the profits that I currently have? So that's always something that I weigh. But let's say I was going to transform this, and let's say, okay, we've got the SPX. It kind of flushed earlier. Now it's making a strong rebound. Let's say I had a bullish assumption going into tomorrow. Remember, this is a 1 DTE iron condor, so the options expire tomorrow at the bell. And so let's say I had a bullish bias going into tomorrow. What I could do is I could, once I'm in the profit to a certain extent, I could remove the risk and turn this 1 DTE iron condor into a bullish vertical spread, which is something that I do quite a bit. If I had a bearish assumption, I could turn it into a downside vertical spread. But let's just take the bullish assumption as our first example. So what I would do is I would take the current order that I got filled in Thinkorswim. Obviously, this is going to be different on every broker, but on Thinkorswim, I'm going to say analyze opposite trade. Okay, so now I have this is my opening trade. Now I basically have a closing trade. So then what I want to do is, if I want to transform this into a bullish vertical spread, I'm going to take the call that I originally sold, which if I'm using a closing order, now I would be buying that one. So that'd be the 7,000 strike. And I'm just going to move it down one strike. So I'm going to move it from 7,000 to 69.95. And then, if I'm in the profit on this original iron condor, I might be able to do this transformation order for, let's say, around $7. So if I just theoretically put $7 in there, what happens is now I have a bullish vertical spread. And if you notice, I hover over the kind of this minimum profit area, and you'll see that's a plus $225 of profit. And so if I do this, I submit this and I get filled at $7, I've now locked in a minimum guaranteed profit of $225. But if tomorrow, if we close above that 7,000 strike, if we close above 7,000, I have the opportunity to make $725. Right. So I've again, kind of reiterating what I said, I've essentially removed the risk, given myself the opportunity at a higher profit. And what you'll find is whatever profit you have on that original iron condor, let's say in this case, maybe I could have taken it off for a $300 profit or a $350 profit. Well, now my minimum profit is $225. So the minimum profit is going to be less than what I could have closed it out, but my max profit is going to be significantly more than what I would have closed the original iron condor for. Therefore, giving myself the opportunity at that higher profit.
Steve, a couple questions, and you might have answered this, but as I said earlier, my brain is well, I'm not, even when I'm running at full capacity, I'd probably ask some dumb questions, but profit wise, let's say, just for instance, what was the credit on this iron condor to start?
925. So
at what, just to be real clear, what juncture of profit would you consider transforming this?
Typically, like on a 1 DTE iron condor, it depends on how wide you go. It depends on how wide the wings are. It depends on how wide the shorts are. But the wider it is, the quicker you can do it. But so if it's pretty wide, once you get to 10 to 15% profit, that's the point where you can typically remove the risk and have a risk-free trade in one direction.
So really, I mean, it can go pretty fast. It's not one of those where you're sitting there for 14 days or something before you transform it. Like, 10% move can happen pretty quick.
Yeah, and I trade my 1 DTEs a little bit tighter, so I'm typically waiting for around 30% profit. But by doing that, that also gives me a pretty decent minimum profit. So, I could transform it a lot earlier and just remove the risk and have, kind of a very tiny minimum profit. I usually like to wait till I have a pretty decent, minimum profit that makes it worthwhile. so that even if I hit that, it's going to be a pretty decent trade, and then give myself at a bigger max profit. But it's a lot of preference. It's a lot of taking an assumption like, okay, I don't trust what price is doing now, so I just want to remove the risk. I really have a strong bullish bias, so I really want to get this locked in and get my bullish vertical in place. So there's some assumptions that go into that, but the most common situation that I personally do it is I usually wait for between 20 to 30% profit, and then if I have a directional assumption, I will transform it into that direction.
Makes sense.
So this is a bullish example. You could do the same thing to the downside. So in this case, I adjusted the call down from 7,000 to 69.95. I'm going to put that back to 7,000, and I'm going to go to the put side, and I'm going to adjust that one up from 69.30 up to 69.35. I'll keep the price the same as if I got filled at $7. And now I've got the exact same thing, but to the downside. I've got a guaranteed profit of $225 minimum profit. If we close tomorrow below that 69.30 strike, I would hit a max profit of $725 per lot.
What have you seen, as far as the type of, you do these all the time, and you do these in different directions and things like that, so it sounds like there's a little bit of, you're starting neutral in general, and then you're locking in profit, and then you're maybe picking a direction and going for bank a little bit more. Would that be a fair analysis of it?
Correct.
And as you go through it, when you put these on, as far as losers, the losers just never get transformed. That's the understanding, right?
Right.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And then, I've always been super intrigued by these. What's kind of some of the wildest structures? Will you ever super transform? Will you ever get, what do you call it? Who was the ultimate? Who was the guy that got really intense after a while in some of the movies? I don't remember which was the transformer that.
I only saw the first one.
Well, that's the correct choice. That's the correct choice. But what all have you done with these? And like, what have you seen profit wise when they really kind of hit the bullseye?
Yeah. So there's some pretty cool things that you can do around using like butterflies. Like I think Madam Butterfly, Kathy, is in the Option Omega Discord as well from time to time. But she is a master transformer. And like I said, I used to do a lot more, but I've just kind of had to scale back because it does take some monitoring and watching to really focus and get these done. But I mean, there are some pretty creative things that you can do with this whole methodology. I think one thing that she was doing for a while is, as soon as the market would open, she'd use 0 DTE options, and she would just set up little condors on kind of each edge of the expected range. And if one of them would, when price moved towards one of them, she was able to remove the risk of everything. And then she basically had these little spike areas of, if price pinned in that area, you can make a significant amount compared to the amount that you risked. So, you could, if you have a directional assumption right off the bat, let's say you just trade a vertical spread, you could have a vertical spread, price starts to go in your direction. You could transform that very quickly and turn it into a risk-free butterfly. I think that's that's where I very first kind of started understanding the concept of transformers, where you could take a vertical spread and transform it into a risk-free butterfly. And then I started thinking, well, what else can I do with this concept? And that's where I really started just playing around with all these different concepts with iron condors and butterfly spreads and different things. So yeah, I mean, I've seen, I don't think she's doing it too much anymore because, like I said, it does take a lot of focus and a lot of screen time throughout the day. But there was a point where she was creating these monster transformers throughout the day, where she was doing, different condors and butterflies at different strikes. And as soon as, price would get to a point where she could transform it, she'd flip it, remove the risk, and then she'd do it over and over and over. And she may have done it 5 or 6 times throughout the day. And so she has this big, looks like an EKG graph that has zero risk. And if it just pins on one of her spikes, you can make a pretty decent little amount of profit.
Well, and to me, these type of structures are so cool because it really accentuates the power of options. There's not another vehicle in the world where you can kind of take risk off the table and do a directional thing, all with kind of starting with one structure and moving to another. That's the power. If you're trading futures, you just don't have that. That's not available to you. And so I think it's awesome stuff, Steve. It's you've done them for a while, and I've watched, and I've seen Madame Butterfly do it too. Shout out to her, because like you said, she's created some monsters before. So it's good stuff.
I think no matter if it's something that you're going to focus on as part of your strategy, I would say just learning the concepts, like you said, and how options work together. Another version of a transformer that other people may be familiar with and didn't really think of them as a transformer is a box spread. When you're boxing off risk. So if you have, let's say you have a spread on the call side and it ends up going deep in the money. A lot of times those deep in the money options, you don't really know where they're trading, because the bid ask spread gets so wide. And so what you can do is you can go over to the put side, use that put call parity, trade it on the put side, which are way out of the money, which are much tighter bid ask spreads, remove that risk, and essentially just let the options expire, because you're zeroing out the risk. So that's another just kind of example of the transformer. Another example is, something that I know, I think the course is on the Option Omega University, is the Magic Mahomes trade. In that trade, we're selling a butterfly in the last 15 minutes of the day. You can use a vertical spread to remove that risk within a few minutes. Sometimes if price moves at all, essentially, if price moves 5 points, you can remove that risk and have a risk-free shot for a bigger profit going into expiration. So there's so many different ways that you can use this concept. It's just when you start looking at these spreads, and I would say if somebody's kind of trying to understand and figure this out, the easiest way is to go to a modeling tool. I would suggest Option Omega modeling tool, because it's the best.
Hey, Steve, I appreciate you.
Or Thinkorswim or whatever, but just go to a modeling tool, set up a spread, and essentially just take the opposite order of your entry and just start playing with the strikes. Move, like I just showed you, move the 7,000 to 69.95, move the 69.30 to 69.35, and just see what that does to your risk profile graph. And it'll start to help you understand how these different orders put in combination with each other will transform one spread to another spread. And then you'll start to figure out ways to remove the risk and find kind of strategic ways to manage these things.
That's awesome stuff. Well, dude, I'm probably going to drink a bunch of Gatorade and go from there, and think about, probably have some pretty feverish nightmare dreams about transforming, condors into weird monsters. So, Steve, where can people find you, and what can they do when they get there?
NavigationTrading.com, probably the best spot. Like I said, if somebody really wants to go deep on the transformers, we do have 4 different kind of deep dive courses on different concepts around it. But always in the Discord, hanging out in the Option Omega Discord from time to time. So Navigation Trading is my profile in Discord, so feel free to hit me up.
I love it. And I put the Academy course in the chat there for the Magic Mahomes. So cool. Steve, you're the man. I appreciate you. Looking forward to seeing more Mahomes next year, but not for the next couple of weeks. So
that's right.
Sorry for your loss. All
Unfortunately.
right, guys. Have a great trading day. We'll see you guys soon.
All right, guys. Take care. Cheers.